Welcome, everybody. We are going to be working on the exercises here for Unit 4. The commands that we're focusing on today are insert, update, and delete. There's some other commands that we kind of have to do along the way to get to the point where we can work. We are working with MySQL as a database and MySQL Workbench as our coding tool. I do have a local instance of MySQL running here on my machine, and I'm connecting up to it right now. And I'm going to start with a fresh query window. And we're going to try to complete these commands one at a time. So the first step is to create a new database, and they want that database called my database. Now, if you want, you can just copy the command directly from here. That's absolutely okay to get it going. And I'm going to zoom in here just ever so slightly so you guys can see my screen, but I'm going to paste in the command, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit the lightning bolt to execute. And you can see we have created a database. Now you will notice in the sidebar in the schemas tab, it doesn't appear yet. Remember, hit that little refresh up in the corner, and now you should see that database. So we're calling this my database. All right. Next command is we want to use that database to do work. So we're going to give it a use statement. We're going to say use my database. Once again, we're going to hit the lightning bolt. I'm going to hit the singular one now. So we're just executing that statement. And now any of the subsequent commands are attached to that database. Let's go back to the instructions. So we've basically completed step one, right? All right, so let's move on here. Now, you'll notice with this document, it's a little bit different than some of the other ones that we've had where I've asked you to put in screenshots. And that's not really necessary here. What I'm interested in are your SQL commands this time. Right, so make sure you follow that paradigm. So the next thing that we need to do is to create a new table named student, and the table should have the following fields. So they're telling us what the names of the fields are, the data type, whether it's a primary key, whether it's null, and then what kind of information it will hold. Right. So our job is to convert this into SQL code. So to do this, we will need to do a create table command, and we're creating a table named student. So let's go back over to our MySQL Workbench here, and let's start to build it. What might be helpful, and I'm just kind of putting it out there, is to have this handy so you can look at it. And you know what? You could do, I guess kind of the geeky split screen thing where you do this, right? If you want to be looking at both things at the same time. I'll leave that up to you if you want to work that way. Some people would find that helpful, right? And you can tell I'm feeling kind of marginal about it, honestly. And I'm just trying to arrange my screen so that it kind of looks good in both capacities. I think that's all right. We can see all the pertinent info. So first command we type is just simply create table, and we give it a name. This is going to be student with a capital S. I'm going to put in a set of parentheses, by the way, and a semicolon, and then I'm going to backspace a couple and split that stuff apart. And then I'm just going to type all my stuff in here. The one thing I notice, and this is pretty common, by the way, in database building, that this is a student table and all the student columns start with student. This is on purpose, right? Because that way, later on, if we're looking at like instructor name versus student name, the columns make sense. That's really kind of the thinking here. So all of them have the word student in there. So I'm going to do this goofy thing is I'm going to, highlight the word student here in my code. And now I'm just going to paste it in and then add ID to it. This is my way of accelerating the workflow, by the way. Then I'm just going to go down a row and go last name, first name. I know this is not syntactically correct yet, but we will fix that. I'm just trying to accelerate the process here. So you guys should do the same. Once again, if you're struggling to keep up with the typing, then what I would implore you to do is wait till the video comes out and follow the video in the aftermath, or at least try, to keep up with the pace, basically. All right. So you see, when I was here, I did hit my tab key multiple times to kind of bring myself out, because really what I want to do is create sort of like columns here so I can look at it really easily. And what I'm going to put as the next declaration here is the data type. I'm not declaring a size, but the first one's going to be an integer. I'm also going to tab over a couple more, and I'm going to say not null, meaning it can't be left blank. I'm also going to add to it, and here's where I'm making my screen just a little bit bigger. I'm going to declare this as the primary key. Now, if you read the book, and I know some people will be going, that's not how they did it in the book, right? I'll show you how they do it in the book also, but this works for declaring a primary key, and it's more common than not in general SQL programming. So this is how I would do it. All right. With a name, last name, and first name, we're given a very specific amount. They want 25 characters for the last name. So I'm going to use a var char parentheses 25 characters. That also should be not null. And that's all we're adding there. So comma at the end. And you know what? After a while, you can get clever about this and go, well, the next one's almost the same, right? And so I just need to change the number to 20. The following one is kind of the same too, except without the not null. And this one's set to 30. I'm not sure what their rationale is. I would think maybe the address could be longer, but maybe not. That one doesn't have a null or not null. So maybe they have the student's address, maybe they don't, but that seems to be a repeating piece of information also. So I'm going to copy paste that one, change it to 15. And then here's one that we talked about before, where you just use the character one and we're forcing it to be 2 characters. Can't be 1, can't be 3, can't be none, right? Has to be 2. So that one works. And then the last one here is also a var char, but that one's set to 9. Why would you set a zip code to 9 characters? I thought they were 5 characters long. Well, because some zip codes have that 4-character extension, right? And I'll tell you what, this is where I'm going to differ from the instructions a little bit. Most people, when they do the 4-character extensions, also add a dash. So by changing it to 10, I can accommodate for all the numbers and the dash. So I think I'm going to do it like that. Now, yeah, you could code around that in the output, but that's what we're going to do. Since that's the last one, we don't need a comma after it. And once you have that all typed in, then I want to have you give it a shot and execute it. So I'm just going to make sure that I'm somewhere within this statement with my cursor, and then I'm going to execute that statement with the second lightning bolt. So here comes the run. It is green, and it did work. Now, if I come up here and I hit the refresh, I will see a student table in the sidebar. And if I expand it, I can see all the columns. Notice the little sidebar down here too also shows all the same data. So it shows that it worked.
Excuse me? Is there not 2 other columns that need to be added? There's student phone and then student date of
You guys
birth.
all good? I'll assume you guys are all okay. Nobody's squawking. I know I am moving a little bit quickly. Just remember, you can always come back and fix this later, but my hope would be that you get this all typed in and give it a try. All right. That's it. All right, so somebody noticed that I didn't get all the columns, that there were more columns on the next page, and thank you for noticing. Thank you. I mean that sincerely. So I did mess up, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to fix it. And the way that I'm going to fix it, and this is kind of strange, is I'm going to drop the table. So drop table student, and then we're going to run it again with the extra columns. So I'm going to run this command, and then I'm going to refresh the schema. All right. And yeah, there are no tables, right? That was the only one that we had. So I'm deleting that command. That one will be erased from YouTube forever, right? But we have two more columns to go. And who caught that? Yeah, Aaron caught it. Oh yeah, Brent, Aaron, and Jared all caught it. Thank you. All right. So the other two columns that we have are the student phone. And that one, that's kind of an interesting one. They have this one set to a varchar also. Why? And they set it to 12 characters. Why? Well, for the dashes between the numbers, and most numbers are 10 digits. And a lot of people put dashes between them or spaces between the numbers. So we're leaving it as a varchar. Some people might say number for that one. The other one is student date of birth, so DOB. That we're going to use a date format. And that one in particular should not allow a null value. Right, that's the last entry here, by the way. So I'm going to run this command again, this time correctly. So let's build it. Looks like it worked. Let's refresh our schema here and see if all the columns are there. And it looks like it worked this time. There is no data inside of it, but the table is there. All right. So if you're working on this document, then what you should do is take this code that you just created and drop it into that green box. So I'm going to do that just to demonstrate. And apparently I didn't copy it, but I'm going to do a copy and then paste. Right, and there's the code. Now I am not leaving it there though, right? You guys need to do that step yourselves. So I want to see your code that you created. And hopefully it works, right? If it doesn't work and you get an error message, then we need to address it. And if anybody here gets an error message as we're trying this stuff, please let us know so that we can take a look. And we can help you fix it. All right, let's go to the next instruction. The next instruction is create a new table named department. This only has two columns, a department ID and a department name. All right, so let's try to do that one. See if we can look at both of these at the same time. So I'm going to come up with my create table command again, create table. This one's called department. Once again, parentheses and a semicolon. Then I put my cursor in between and split them. It's kind of the way I like to do it, right? The reason I do that is that way I don't forget to put those two in at the end. That's why. It's kind of my strategy. Right, so this one's going to have a department ID. And I'm going to go full screen on this now. So department ID. And I think that one was an integer, not null. And once again, a primary key. And then a comma. Right, I just want to double check. Not null, primary key. And then we have department name, which is varchar 30 and not null. So here we have department name. It was a varchar 30. Is that correct? 30, 30. Also not null. And we already have a primary key, so we're good. One thing I do want to kind of throw in here is when you look at the book examples, they'll go and put the primary key info like down here. So I'm just going to make a little note. Primary key can go here instead, as per your book. Right. Now, we will discover with foreign keys, we haven't really talked about keys yet much, but those have to go at the bottom, by the way. I'm not sure of a syntax that allows for it in the statement. All right, so here's the create department table. I'm going to go ahead and run this command also. Boy, it sure didn't like me adding that there, so I better get rid of it. Oh, okay, it wasn't because of that. It was because of this. That's why. All right, so we're going to run this command now. Running the second lightning bolt. So here comes the run. That worked. Do we have another table here now? We sure do. All right, so just 2 columns on that one. Everybody's okay? All right. Moving back to the instructions. Remember, paste your SQL code inside the box. All right, create a new table named instructor. Table should have the following fields, and this time I'm going to be wise and look at the second page. So I see all of it, right? Maybe I should zoom out just to make sure. So we're calling it instructor, and these are the columns. Excuse me. All right, so here comes create table instructor, parentheses, semicolon, and split them. All of the column names have the word instructor in them. So I'm going to just copy paste that part. Here's the ID. I'm using the same technique I did before. In fact, if you want to be clever about it, you can do that and then come back and type last name, first name, phone. Now we'll put in our data types. So we'll go, I'm going to go one over here. The first one will be an int. That will be not allowing null values, and it will be our primary key. Structure last name, that's going to be a varchar of size 40. Also not allowing null values. And then I'm going to tab this one over just to make it look nicer. The next one is similar, so may as well do a little copy paste. And it looks like I skipped the V there. And then we'll change that to a 20. And then the phone number looks like that's a varchar 12, like up here. So I'm just going to copy that. And then we have a blank line here. We got one more thing, which is I guess I didn't see this one. So we have the instructor department ID. And then we're going to connect this department ID to match up with that department ID in this table. And I'll show you how to do it. That's done with a foreign key, by the way. This one's going to be an integer. And it also has to be not null. So an instructor has to be part of a department. Now, this one is a little strange in that when we do basically what is a foreign key, and just to give you an example of what that means, is that whatever goes into this column in this table has to have an entry in this table that matches, right? So in other words, if I'm in IT and my department number is 1, there better be an IT department with the number 1 here, right? And that's called a foreign key. And so I'm going to use this keyword. And again, we have not formally learned about this yet, but this is how you do it, right? This is the connecting piece. So we're saying that the foreign key, which is the field name right here, this one, inside of set of parentheses, references the department table and which field or column, the department ID. And then we close that with the center parentheses. I'll go full screen on this so you can see it all at once. Right, so there's the whole statement. So foreign key, we take this instructor department ID. I gotta make sure I type it all correctly too, because it is underlining red, so I'm a little concerned about that. That's an integer, not null, and that references the department table and the department ID, and those have to match in order for this to work. Now it's still underlining, and it's saying is expecting a parenthesis, and I'm trying to figure where am I missing? Oh yeah. Thank you. Right. So it's not, yeah, I thought I was missing the comma here, but I was missing the comma there. Good catch. Thank you, Jared. This is why it's good to have a bunch of people looking at code together, because somebody sees a mistake that you don't. All right. Once you have this whole thing typed in, and I'm trying to like move at a strategically slow speed, by the way. And I know that you guys are probably still catching up, so I apologize if I'm going a little too quick. I'm going to go ahead and execute this command now. So here goes the run. It looked like it worked, right? So now we should also have an instructor table. And once again, if you're paranoid about the stuff getting there, you can just click in there, click on the table name. It'll show you the data types over here. And it looks like it worked just fine. I want you to notice too that when you're looking at the data here in the little information window, that when something is a primary key, you notice how it's underlined. And when something is a foreign key, it's just bold. So that means, you know, there's important pieces of information. Just to give you some real basics on these, whenever something is a primary key, whatever value that column gets has to be unique to the table, right? So no two instructors could have the same ID. You'll probably have instructors that have the first name. You might even have instructors that have the same last name. So those can't be unique, right? But their ID can be unique, right? The department ID is a foreign key. So when we connect that back, it's a primary key in this table, which makes it unique and makes it basically forced to be existent, right? And that way, when we put that value in this table, it's as a foreign key, it tells us what the connection is. It references the department ID from the department table. That's just to kind of reinforce that concept. We will talk more about these concepts going forward, but for right now, this is all we need to do the work. All right. So if that worked for you, make sure you grab your code and dump it into the document so you can submit it. Right. So now we're getting away from table creation and we're moving into insert mode. And we're going to insert this information. So this is kind of interesting because you're seeing like what it's going to look like basically afterwards. And then you have to type the insert command to make this happen. Now we're going to be inserting this information into the department table. Thankfully, that one's only got 2 columns. So we have to give it the insert command to make it happen. All right, so I'm going to demonstrate this in what I call the verbose manner, because I think, especially when you're new to this, it makes the most sense to do it that way. And that is to first issue the insert into command. So insert into. What table are we putting this into? The department table. Right. And then we're going to declare the columns into which we're inserting the stuff. So inside of parentheses, I'm going to do department ID and department name in that order. Then we're going to insert values. And so normally I kind of go like this with it. And if you want, you can move down to the next line. Or what I'm going to do is I'm going to tab over, and then inside sets of parentheses, I'm going to send that information. The first piece of information is an integer, right? So I'm going to just put in 1. That sounds like a good department number to me. And then we call the first one, I don't remember what it was now, business information tech. All right, so I'm going to drop this in. I'm going to start typing. Business information tech. And now, I'm starting to look at the department name and that it's set to 30 for varchar. And I'm like, uh-oh, is that hitting that wall already? So I'm counting at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, it'll fit, right? If I had technology, would that fit? No, that would be a couple too many letters, by the way, right? The other thing that, and I'll say this as well, is that often when you're doing this, really the convention, and I get into like the other coding languages in my head, the convention is usually to use single quotes when you're doing SQL commands, but double quotes work as well, right? So I'm going to do single quotes. That's the first entry. Then I'm going to do a comma, and then I'm going to do a bunch more entries. And you know what? I'm a fan of the copy paste. So I'm just going to kind of do the other ones. I'm going to renumber them. The renumbering is pretty easy, right? And then I got to change the names to match, which of course I've forgotten already. So let's see if I can adjust my window size here so we can see the names. So we got marketing, accounting, electronics, and industrial. So let's do marketing, accounting, electronics, and then industrial. Now I have one too many commas here, so I'm going to get rid of that last comma. And then I'm not sure if I blew away. No, I guess I didn't actually add them. And this is kind of interesting because you notice I don't have a semicolon here and it doesn't really care, but I'm going to put one in anyhow. Just makes me comfortable to have it there because I know then the statement is over and I can move on. And now we're going to run this command. Let's go ahead and do that. Here comes the run. Looks like it worked. Now, if I look in the department table, right, and look at the data, notice I have those entries. Yay. All right. Very, very exciting stuff, but proof that the information made it in. So this is kind of like the brute force mechanical way of adding the information. So make sure, once again, folks, that you take that insert statement and drop it into the green box here. The next one that we have is a table that's got even more information, right? And if you guys were maybe cursing the last table, like, oh my God, I got to type all that stuff in. Well, here's one that's a little bit longer that we're moving into next. So with this one, we're going to be inserting information into all the columns, which includes ID, last name, first name, phone, and department ID. And that's going into the instructor table. So here comes the syntax for that. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a little bit of white space here in my document. I'm going to get the insert into instructor, and then I'm going to have my set of parentheses here. And I'm going to put all my column names in. And yes, I'm going to cheat a little bit here and put in the column names. And I'll widen the screen so you guys can see them. And if you're typing, there they are in the chat. Trying to help you guys out a little bit because I know, like, when we start putting in the data, I have like 2 more or 3 more insert things already kind of built, and then from there, I think I missed the last one, so we'll have to type that completely manually, by the way. But now we can put in our values. So I'm going to say values, and then once again, inside a set of parentheses, we're going to have to put in this information. The first information from the table is this. And here's, if you want it in the chat, right? So that goes inside a set of parentheses. So this would be the ID, right? ID, last name, first name, phone, and instructor department ID. Then since we're going to insert more records, you want to take the information from that table verbatim, and I say verbatim, but I'm going to tell you what, I didn't do it verbatim. I ended up tweaking some of the phone numbers. I didn't do it all uppercase, if you've noticed, but otherwise all the numbers, the ID numbers and the apartment numbers are the same. Hopefully that's a, I don't have to type all that moment, right? So in the chat, same text I just dropped onto my screen. Once you have the insert command built, you have no red underlines or X's or anything. Make sure the command is like your cursor's in there somewhere and hit the second lightning bolt. And once again, you see that worked. And then we can see the result of it by looking inside the instructor table and seeing all the data. So here's the query in its entirety. All right. Now, as we get to this next directive, basically, we're now going to be dropping stuff. So we dropped it into the instructor table. We did the department table, right? We did all that stuff. And then I'm just trying to catch this last command here. All right. So this should be bold, by the way. So then insert into the student table the following rows. This, unfortunately, I don't have pre-typed, so I'm going to be right here with you, slugging it out, typing it all in. So let's see who can do it quickest. And what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to move this to my other screen. And I'll tell you what, if you want to kind of use my strategy here, is I'm going to just like screenshot that graphic and then move it over here. And then I'm going to start building the insert command. So here comes the top part of the command, and I will put this in the chat, by the way, because I do want you to save some time. So here's the first part of the insert statement. And notice we're calling out the table, and then all of the columns are being called out. Then we will insert the values. And then we're going to follow the information in that table. I have the information on my other screen, so I'm going to build one entry here. So then we have the blueprint for it. So 1, 2, 3, Jones, Tom, somebody had a sense of humor. It's 1400 South 27th Street. And that really should be inside of quotations because that's a string of text, right? Yes. And then we'll say Milwaukee. That's also text. You can put in, I guess, whatever town names you want. A zip code. Should that be numeric? Well, here's the thing, right? If you forget, right, you can look at this the student table and then look, is the zip a number or characters? It's characters. So we're going to put quotations around it. Even though they're numbers, we're treating them like text. Right. Then we'll have the phone number. Once again, that's also characters. So, and I'm just gonna, and I guess we could try to make ones that look sort of real. And then finally, we do a student date of birth. And what I'm doing here is 1977 04 24. We're going to close that. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to zoom out just ever so slightly so it all fits on the screen. There you go. And that's one singular entry. And from what I see here, they have 4 more students. So here's my strategy. I'm going to copy this format. I'm going to paste it in. And for me, it's going to be easier to go in here and change these entries. And notice I put a semicolon at the end, by the way, and then tweak them. You know, so I'm noticing the ID numbers go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 5, 1, 4, 3, 1, 5, 3. And then last name of Marshall, Adams, Flintstone, and Biddle. And then notice how I'm kind of doing this. I'm going in column order. You know, that's how my brain kind of functions. And because really technically we're not doing anything in particular with this data per se, the accuracy of it is like, you know, kind of questionable. You know, you will notice that even in the data that's presented, there were like little minor tweaks so that wouldn't be like too hard to fix it or change it, right? And if you watch the strategy I'm doing now, and ironically, I'm trying to speak at the same time, so it's kind of like walking and chewing bubble gum. You know, all the streets are variants with 4 or zeros in there. All the streets are southward facing, and all of them tend to have 7s in them. So 87th Street, this one is 5th Street, this one is 57th Street, and this one is 67th Street. They're all in Milwaukee. They have slightly different zip codes. So here's a 53229, another 227, a 237, and a 227. And then we have, you know, phone numbers. All of them have, or most of them have the same prefixes, but you know, reality is it kind of doesn't matter, you know. But if you want to be persnickety about it, you know, put in some stuff. And then it's probably good to change the dates also, just in case we run a query of some sort. And I'm trying to be accurate here, folks. I think I'm hitting my arrow key and I'm not. So now I have some different dates, different phone numbers, different names, different addresses, all the same towns and different zip codes. But, you know, it's pretty close to what we have there. Now, I'm still getting a red underline here. I'm not sure why that's happening. So now I'm double checking. Oh, right here. Student city is split. So I'm putting it back together. So if I put it in the chat that way, I sure did. You want to fix that? You don't want any spaces. Once you have the syntax hopefully correct, go ahead and run that execute button. And then I got a little error. Column count doesn't match the value at row 1. All right, so what am I missing? So I got student ID, last name, first name, student address. Now I'm going back up and I'm looking student address, city, state, zip, phone, and date of birth. So column count doesn't match the value count at row 1. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so what did I put in here superfluously? Oh, I did not put in the state. You guys catch that? Right. So that's the kind of error message you get. So all of these, fortunately, are in Wisconsin. So I can type WI like that and then insert that in each one of these records right before the zip. And now I think I'm okay. But that's actually kind of nice. Sometimes you make a mistake, you see what the error message looks like, then you watch the process of trying to fix it. Right, so here comes the run on that. Okay, incorrect date value. Oh, okay. I think we have to put quotes around that too. All right, let's give that a try. Here goes the run. Make sure the cursor is in the code. And this time it worked. Right? Want to make sure, go to the student table, pull up the data, and there it is. And it all looks okay. Thank goodness, right? So once again, if you guys are trying to type this all in, right? And this is the last one I'm dropping in there because this is the last one I have pre-typed, by the way. So the rest of them we're typing them out manually, right? So even if there's a bit of data, we're all typing them out together. Is there anybody who's keeping pace with my typing? I'm not going too fast, right? It's okay. It's okay to admit it. Just remember, you have the video in the aftermath. You can also be clever and take screenshots of what I'm typing in and then just type it in after. That works too. All right. So we got another exercise to do here. Thanks, Chris. And let me find that document. There it is. All right. So we did that piece. All right. Now we have a bunch of commands where they don't give us information to insert. And I guess that was the last big insert. So that wasn't so bad, right? Now we have to type up commands that do what this describes. So it says display only the columns student ID, student last name, student first name, and order them by student last name from the student table. All right, so that's I guess that's pretty specific, right? So let's try to get that to happen. All right, so now we're going to be running a query basically over the data that we've inserted, and then we're going to make sure that it works. All right, so I'm going to type my select statement here. So I'm going to type select. Let's see, student ID, student last name, and student first name. I'm going to do my from statement here. From which table? The student table. And then we're going to order by, right? We're not like looking for a condition here. So we just want to see everybody, but we want to see all three of those pieces of information. We're going to order by the student last name, semicolon. So what's my problem here? Orber by, guys catching that? It's a very, really simple little typo. I'd like to say I did that intentionally to see if you guys caught it, but that was not the case. That was a honest mistake in typing. All right, so there's our very simple query, and we're going to run it. Now, let's see, unknown column student. I don't know if you guys can read that, but it says student first name. And sure enough, there you go. I mistyped it. Let's run it again. And there it is. There's our output. Now, what I would ask on this one is that I not only want to see your command, but if you could also paste a screenshot of the output, because what we should see are all the students that we just added, right? But notice that these are ordered alphabetically. Is this the correct alphabetical order? It is. Is it all the students? Yes, it is. So there's number 8. Right. Number 9. I'm looking at the time here and we're getting really close to the end. Or was that number 7? That was number 8. Okay. Trying to keep the numbering straight here. Okay. So for the next one, all right, so this one says modify the student record for student ID 123 to have a phone number, a new phone number. So we want to actually change that, command basically. And we need to basically remember our syntax, right, for how do we do an update command, because this is what we're doing in this particular exercise is we're doing a MySQL update. So the basic lay of the land to complete that, and I apologize, I was just looking for my solution code here on the other screen, is we are going to start with the command update. So we are going to update. Which table are we updating? So it's going to be the student table. So we're going to declare student. On the next line, we are going to set a certain column to a different value. What's the column that we're setting? The phone number. So we're going to set student phone. I think that's what we called it, right? Instructor phone, student phone. Equal to the number that we see over there on the sidebar. So we're going to go 414-888-1234. But only if the condition is met where the student ID is equal to 123. We'll do single quotes on that. And then a semicolon at the end. Pretty simple little command to type. And remember, if we omitted the where, all the students would end up with the same phone number, right? Not what we want. So here we go. Here's the run. Looks like it worked. How do we know it worked? You go to the student table and look, right? So we'll find the student with the ID of 123, and notice the phone number has indeed updated. So we're good, right? So that was number 9. Just a few more commands here, and I am looking at the clock. I don't know if we'll get all of these in, but we'll get close. So we're just going to keep rolling until we get there. I hope you guys are okay with that. Modify the instructor table to have an email column as a varchar 30 and null. All right, so we didn't learn how. Okay, so I'm a little confused here because this is an alter command, and I thought we removed those from here. So just bear with me here a second while I confirm that. Kind of embarrassing to put into the video, but hey, it's the reality of what it is. All right, so you guys, I'm deleting number 10 because we didn't learn how to do that, by the way. So when you guys work on that one, please keep that in mind. So we're renumbering these now. So that's going to be number 10, and this is going to be number 11. So we did an update. Let's try a delete. It says delete the student record for ID 135 with a select statement that the student record was deleted. Okay. So let's do the delete. And remember, this one is important when we start looking at the specifics of how you do it, because once again, this is completely destructive. And you got to be really careful with the syntax. So we're going to say delete from, and what table are we pulling this from? All right, this is from the student table. So delete from student. And we need a criteria here. So we do need to say, or a condition, where the student ID equals 135. Now, because the IDs are numeric, right? They're integers. We don't need double quotes. All right, let's run that command. Looks like it worked. Who did we delete? George Adams, right? So let's look at the student table again, and you can see George is now gone. All right. The next command that we need to do is to delete the record for department ID 4 from the department table. Was it successful? If not, why? All right, so it looks like they're kind of leading us down a path here. Let's see what that path is. All right, so we're going to do the same kind of command, delete from department where department ID all right, let's try to run this. And it says delete, cannot delete or update a parent row. A foreign key constraint fails. And I'm trying to read the whole thing, right? Let's just go full screen here. We try to get that whole error message. And really, this is part of the table design. So let's go up and look at how this was designed first, right? We're trying to delete this, which is a primary key. That's okay to do actually, right? But the problem is in this table, we're using it as a reference as a foreign key. And because in the instructor table, we have people that are in that department I can't delete the department until I either change these values or delete the instructors. So that's the answer as to why. So that command is not going to work no matter what you do. And the reason why is it is a foreign key in a different table, and there are values in that table that attach to that department ID. Right. So that's kind of the crux of it. And with going like 2 minutes over time, we did finish everything, folks. And so that's pretty good, right? Kind of down to the wire though. We got like used up every last minute to get it done. This video is going to end here. So this video is over.